This Pitch Breakfast video is brought to you by Spangler and Agins, attorneys for Charlotte's startup community.
All right, thank you everyone. My name is Tim Griffin. I'm the founder of Cluesive, a mobile solution that will change the way that you buy. Today there are plenty of problems on the market that Cluesive solves for, but this morning I want to focus on consumer attention deficit and app market saturation. It's likely not surprising to anyone in this room that 90% of the time that we spend on our phones can be shared across maybe only a handful of apps. In fact, it's believed that only 5 apps get most of our attention, despite having anywhere from 20 to 50 apps on your phone at any given moment. And while attention is certainly a component of that, it's believed that app market saturation of the total available app market is a primary driver of this behavior, which is why it's important to note that of the 2.2 million apps available in the Apple Store today, only 1.3% of downloads in 2017 to date can be accredited to the shopping category, which is what I'm here to speak about. It's my belief there are too many merchant-branded native apps to warrant a consumer downloading it for use every 1 to 3 months. Of the merchant-branded apps in that market, of course, Amazon is the most successful, achieving a 25% download rate. But that stat doesn't tell the whole story, because the app only accounts for 2% of the time that users who downloaded it actually spend on their phones. So why is it that despite such low utilization figures for the country's largest merchant, Amazon's competitors continue to develop their own branded native application with the hopes of attaining some sort of success that's never been there? It's my belief that they do this with the hopes of attaining valuable data that they can derive insights from and will support key strategic decisions that they need to make about their business. But I don't believe that they'll ever achieve success as they set out to with the development of these apps without working together as a cohesive unit, which is why I'm excited to introduce you to the enabler of that collaboration, Cluesive. Cluesive is a customer-driven utility that enables our consumers to engage the product regardless of what they're buying or who they're buying it from. In addition to being merchant agnostic, Cluesive extends into verticals that will add value to the consumer's life every single day, like the traditional retail market, but also including dining in restaurants, food trucks, pop-ups, breweries, and coffee shops. Anywhere that a consumer may buy a good or service, Cluesive will be there. It's this inclusive market that ultimately drives value to both the merchant enabling the product and the consumer using it. For the consumer, this is a simple and personal experience. In addition to the intuitive UI and the aggregation of the features and functions that they're already used to and accustomed to using from their favorite apps today, we'll use simple gamification tactics to incent regular use of the app by rewarding them for every purchase they make with tangible discounts that can be credited to any purchase that they make. But I really want to emphasize that it's personal, and I don't mean personalized. It's personal in the sense that our AI engine, Ava, will learn about your preferences as a consumer and be able to articulate recommendations to you based on your individual preferences, not based on some screenshot or cart grab from Amazon.com that we're used to seeing on our web browser every time we switch between Facebook and Amazon. Now for the merchant, it's in addition to the insightful troves of data that will be available regarding consumer purchase habits or demographics, we will provide them with a toolkit that enables them to better engage their consumer base with those recommendations. They'll learn more about their individual customers, ultimately enabling a net new merchant-to-consumer engagement channel. So what does that look like? If I'm a consumer and I'm walking into an apparel store and I see a shirt that I want to buy, I can simply scan the barcode of that item, add it to my cart like I would online, pay for it from my phone, and walk out of the store without ever waiting in line at the point of sale checkout or tracking down a sales associate to pay. Just grab a bag and go. Similarly, in an environment like a brewery where you maybe need to place an order, you can place that order from your phone, pay for it with the same user interface, and pick it up at the designated location within that merchant's brick and mortar environment. It's simple, intuitive, and seamless for the consumer and benefits both sides of the market. In terms of our go-to-market strategy, our revenue model is a standard software as a service tiered package, depending on what the merchant needs within their environment, based on a per location, per month pricing structure, which will help us to scale accordingly based on what our consumers need, or what our merchants need from us. Despite the relative young age of our organization, we were incorporated back in April. We actually won North Highlands, it's a management consulting firm's big idea competition, which was governed and paneled by 3 venture capitalists from Silicon Valley and Atlanta, who chose this as the winner. We've achieved $300,000 in equity investment to date to kickstart development, and we're moving swiftly towards a fall launch of our pilot, which we're aiming to do across local Charlotte area breweries in an event-based fashion where each Saturday over the course of 5 to 6 weeks, the app will be made available that day for consumers to leverage and be incented to use. Do I keep going? Okay. We just have the team left, so the business team is comprised of myself, Peter, and Rio. We all have relevant marketing and revenue model structure expertise accordingly to bring this product to market. Our product team is comprised of astounding design, experienced design, product development users, or employees who have built products like this in the past and have relevant experience to bring it to market. And we've been lucky enough to found an advisory board to date that is comprised of folks with relevant industry and solution-based expertise, headed up by Dan Reardon, North Highlands CEO, extending with Ryan and Jennifer, who both have combined over 40 years of retail industry expertise. We have Ben Galbraith, who actually built the Walmart Scan and Go Pay app for Walmart and has since moved on to Google to be the head of their payments industry or payments sector. And Bill Greiser here in Charlotte from TIAA, who heads up TIA's retail products group. Thank you everyone for your time. I'd like to open it up for questions.
What say ye?
Let's start. Want me to start?
Yeah, go ahead. We'll work this way.
Yeah, so congrats on the money.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think I say the same thing every time, so I'll just repeat it for those who've been here before and listened to my speech. In the 5-minute format, which is kind of almost the worst format to have, right? You stayed very abstracted on the concept for 2.5 minutes, so you ate up half your time at a highly abstracted level, which I thought was interesting, but kind of it just compromises. So if it's in a, like these formats of 5 minutes are probably at like trade shows or other quick get to know people. So just always kind of know your audience. I mean, I could probably keep the abstracted thing going with you because I've spent time in this area, but I think people who don't have direct experience will probably lose it quickly.
Okay.
So it took you to, with a minute 21 left, you went to what does it look like, which allowed it to kind of click and gel. And then also when you say things like mutually beneficial early on, I would just start to like really conceptualize what that means. Here's the benefit to the consumer, benefit to the merchant, and just get me hooked, get my brain hooked on value proposition there, and then that kind of sets up your revenue model. So I think, you got all the pieces and parts. It's just probably slimming the 5-minute format out a tad.
The narrative,
Keeping the abstractions for like later in the conversation and stick with specific examples and get to the concept of like brewery, Charlotte, minimum viable product / here's what we're going to prove and tell me what you're going to get out of that trial. Because if you are kind of trying to put another round on top of the 300, that's really what most people are going to focus on. What are you trying to get out of the Charlotte brewery thing? How does it prove value proposition for customer and merchant? Use of funds, that kind of stuff. But it's really good. That's all I had to say. It's awesome.
Thank you.
Good. Tim, nice job. Also give kudos to Colin, I guess, as your UI guy. I think the app looks great. So
I built the UI actually.
Oh, okay.
Colin designed the experience.
So sorry if Colin's in the room. Sorry about that.
It's even better now, doesn't it?
Looks phenomenal. I struggled a little bit with your problem, the attention thing. I think that's what Mark was referring to, because at the end of the day, you're trying to get this app into the merchants. And that's my biggest question. Do you have to sell to every single merchant to adopt this? And alongside that, Apple Pay has had trouble getting into merchants. I think I use Apple Pay once a month, and I know the penetration rate has been low. So how do you get merchants to adopt this technology?
Yeah, so to answer the Apple Pay component of that, it's hardware-based. They need near frequency communication with the chip reader. And if you're asking a merchant to install a net new device in their environment, that's a tough ask. Mm-hmm. We're not asking them to do that with this. We can either integrate into their current point of sale system through APIs, which will, in the retail environment, be necessary just given the mass quantity of inventory that's available. In a brewer environment, they can use our proprietary software, which is just an order-based system, much like Seamless or Grubhub. They would get an order to come through, and we'll process payments with Stripe, so it's seamless for them. Mm-hmm. So the sale component is correct in that we need to go speak with these merchants. The hope is that we'll attain enough grassroots marketing campaign action, if you will, to have them start calling us. So that's a key component of the brewery experience, which I would love to spend more time on, is that we'll establish that momentum in a test environment where it's just fun for everyone involved.
So for your upcoming launch, how many merchants are signed on?
We are in
participate?
discussions with 5 of the South End breweries. We are being very tactical about the demographic and the density of where this is accepted, because that's going to be so important. It needs to be in enough places within a 10-mile radius for it to warrant any value to the consumer side of the market. So we're going to be very careful about how we actually roll this out.
Yeah, so the presentation looks nice and you did a good job. I think to Mark's point, there are a few things. Like the first, the sort of the setup of what the problem is a bit unrelated to what you're actually solving.
Okay.
So like the whole attention, downloads, and stuff is not necessarily related to the merchant's problem or the shopper's problem. So that's one point. And then like from that high level, how do you got to get to like how are you actually going to pull this off? There's lots of questions. So have you thought like how does it work? Like when you go to a merchant, how do they actually use it?
Yeah, so for a merchant, I'll use the breweries as an example. We would hand them an iPad, right? And on that iPad, they would gain visibility into orders that come through from the consumer side. So if I ordered an IPA at Sycamore, I would see that on the bartender side in the designated location that they've set up, and I would fill that order, and the consumer would come up. I could call it out like I'm at Starbucks, right? Order's ready for Tim. And if Tim's standing there, then he just shows his ID and gets his beer. If he's not, then it goes in the little docket behind, and they wait for Tim to come up and approach and get his beer. But it eliminates the stress of it. I don't know if you guys have been to a brewery on a Saturday, making eye contact with the bartender, waiting for them to come over, and they have 50 people waiting for their beers. This, at least as a consumer, lets me know that the beer is being poured, and I know where to go get it. So the integration of the actual application into the environment is not all that cumbersome. It's when we get to the retail environment and need to integrate into a point of sale system like Micros or Oracle that it does become a bit more technical in nature, and we need the architecture established accordingly.
Yeah, my only, so that's a good example of like I love the retail idea, and I'm sure it's technically way more complicated given the POS integration challenges you'll have. But the application, the brewery model, just feels like so niche and so small, and almost like the learnings you're going to get from it could be valuable. But I'd want to understand like why you're going after that. If the reason is just like we're here, there's tons of breweries in Charlotte, and it's awesome. Like that's fine too.
Yeah, the intent is twofold. Number one, it is to get feedback on the actual functionality. So, for instance, we need to understand how customers feel about scanning a barcode. Mm-hmm. So we're actually going to hand out 200 cups that will give folks 1 beer on us. Per Charlotte law, someone's got to pay for it, where they can scan the barcode and it'll unlock that reward. So now we've got that user interaction that we can obtain feedback from. And then of course we have the order functionality where they can place it right from the phone and we can obtain feedback from that. The second part of this is we'll have a vendor tent set up at the brewers, and we'll have pieces of paper lined up, old school, and asking our consumers that are using the app to sign their name against the merchants that they want to see our app integrated with, very kind of grassroots in nature, so that at the end of this tour, we can go to those merchants and show them 100, 200 signatures of folks who want our app in their environment and ask them to integrate.
So I mean, I think what we're saying is like if you can work on the front end, like the abstract part he was talking about, and make it more like what problem are you really solving? You're making it easier for consumers to shop and buy and purchase and stuff like that. That's the real problem. And then like this is such a big concept that like the three of us are probably like scratching our heads like how the hell are you gonna pull this off? So you gotta like get
into it. Yep.
Go directly into the weeds and start showing how you're gonna make it happen, because like lots of people have tried to tackle this SMB market with different apps that solve shopping problems, and it's chicken and egg, and you're going to charge a subscription fee, and the subscription fee is going to be based on how many like people are going to pay that or recur on that fee if they see success. So you have this massive churn risk. So you have a lot of things that kind of like pop up in the eyes of the investor that you have to try to address in the nuts and bolts of how you can make it happen. So you got to get into that topic.
Okay.
Otherwise, people will just be thinking that in their head and
core of the
say,
problem up front and jump in.
This thing is fraught with peril and risk, and I don't know how you're going to solve it. So pass.
Be really tight on what the brewery experience will hopefully teach. Right? There's a hypothesis going into the experiment. What's the anticipated result? The result is positive. Here's how we would leverage those learnings. If it's negative, here's what we learn. Like, just get tight. Otherwise, I think you're just swimming. Like, I'm just like, these guys are going to get crushed, running around, having fun. Awesome, but
No,
it looks cool, but I don't know how you're going to make it happen.
That sounds like a great weekend.
So I think that's the universal sentiment I think you're hearing from us is like, big idea, but you got to get into the weeds of how you're going to make it happen.
Okay.
And your next pitch is probably, this 5-minute pitch should turn into like a pitch to the GM of Sycamore, right? Like,
Yeah.
so if you can test this on them, make sure the hook is getting set with them quickly.
Yes.
That's going to be important. That's probably the best takeaway from here is like you probably need a 5-minute pitch because the GM at wherever, name your favorite
They're not
brewery, he's
gonna
probably
get
got
time.
5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
Okay.
Cool. Nice job.
Tim Griffin, Cluesive.